You know that moment when you realize your entire family has been lying to your face for years? I had that moment standing in a $1,000 suit outside my cousin's wedding venue while my aunt physically blocked the entrance and called security on me. The beggar, she called me. The family embarrassment. What she didn't know. I owned the building, the catering company, even the luxury cars they'd rented to feel important for a day. But I'm getting ahead of myself. This story doesn't start with revenge. It starts with a lie my family told themselves for so long they actually started to believe it. And that lie destroyed everything. My name is Marcus, and I need you to understand something about my family before we go any further. We weren't poor. We weren't rich. We were that specific kind of middle class where everyone's desperately trying to look more successful than they are. My father owned a small consulting firm. Nothing flashy. It paid the bills, funded 2 modest homes, and kept my mother in the social clubs she loved. But in my family, perception was everything. How things looked mattered more than how things actually were. I had 2 siblings. My older brother David, the golden child, graduated top of his class, went to law school, married a doctor. The kind of son you brag about at country club brunches. Then there was my younger sister Melissa. Beautiful, charming, married into what my mother called good stock, meaning money and connections. And then there was me. I was the middle child in every sense of the word. Not the brilliant firstborn. Not the beloved baby. I was quiet where David was charismatic. Awkward where Melissa was effortlessly social. I liked computers and books while they liked networking and parties. My father used to introduce us at family events with this little speech he thought was charming. This is David, my successor. This is Melissa, my princess. And this is Marcus, my... Well, Marcus. Everyone would laugh. I learned to laugh too. The thing about being the forgotten child is that you develop this survival instinct. You learn to be useful without being seen. To anticipate needs before they're spoken. To never ask for too much because you're afraid of being told you don't deserve it. I went to a decent state school on a partial scholarship. My parents paid the rest, but I heard about it constantly. David's law school tuition was an investment. My computer science degree was, hopefully, practical. I worked 2 jobs through college. Not because I had to, because I wanted to stop hearing the sighs every time a tuition bill arrived. The real damage started when I was 26. I'd been working at a tech startup for 3 years. Good company, decent pay, but nothing spectacular. I was a senior developer, which sounds impressive until you realize at a startup, everyone's a senior something. David had just made junior partner at his firm. My parents threw him a massive celebration, rented out a restaurant, invited everyone they knew. I showed up with a card and a bottle of wine. My mother's face when she saw me. She smiled, but her eyes did that thing. That disappointed thing. Marcus. You came, she said, like she genuinely expected me not to show up for my own brother's party. Of course I came. You look tired. Are you still at that computer place? That computer place. 3 years I'd worked there. She'd never once asked me what we built or what I did there. The evening was fine until the speeches started. My father stood up, champagne glass in hand, and talked about David for 15 minutes. The pride in his voice was something I'd never heard directed at me. He talked about David's first case, his dedication, his future. Then he turned to me, still standing at the microphone. And Marcus is here too. Still figuring things out, but we're patient. Still figuring things out. I was 26 with a stable job and my own apartment. But in that room, surrounded by David's colleagues and my parents' friends, I became the family project. The one who still needed time. Melissa touched my arm afterward. Don't take it personally. You know how Dad gets with David. But I did take it personally. 'Cause it was personal. Here's the thing nobody tells you about being underestimated. It's the greatest gift anyone can give you. 2 months after David's party, my startup got acquired. Not by a giant, but by a mid-sized tech firm looking to expand their development capacity. Most people saw it as a lateral move. I saw it differently. I'd been working on something in my spare time. A platform for connecting enterprise clients with specialized service providers. Not sexy, not revolutionary, but functional and needed. The acquisition gave me three things: a severance package, connections to venture capital through my old CEO, and time. I took a meeting with a VC firm in the city. Not because I thought they'd fund me. I didn't even have a pitch deck, but because I wanted to understand how this world worked. I showed up in my best suit, which was a graduation gift from 3 years prior, and I was honest. I don't have projections. I don't have a team. What I have is a working prototype and 3 years of watching inefficient markets in the service industry. The partner I met with, Jennifer Chen, didn't laugh me out of her office. Instead, she asked me to come back in 2 weeks with actual numbers. I didn't sleep for those 2 weeks. I built a financial model, created user flow diagrams, researched competitors, identified market gaps. I taught myself business terminology from YouTube videos at 2 in the morning. I was terrified and electric with possibility. Jennifer funded me. Not a massive round, $300,000. But it was mine. I didn't tell my family. Not because I was hiding it, but because I knew how they'd react. It would become another thing I was trying. Another risky decision that proved I wasn't as smart as David. The next 4 years were the hardest and best of my life. My platform, Connect Point, started small. I focused on event services first. Catering, venues, entertainment, staffing. The market was fragmented and ripe for disruption. I worked 100-hour weeks. I learned sales, which terrified me. I learned negotiation, which I was surprisingly good at. I learned when to say no, which was harder than learning anything else. The business grew slowly, then suddenly. By year 2, we were profitable. By year 3, we'd expanded to 5 cities. By year 4, we were processing millions in transactions monthly, and I'd raised a Series B round. I hired smart people. I stayed focused. I reinvested everything back into the company. And I still didn't tell my family. I'd see them at holidays. They'd ask how things were going in that tone that expected bad news. Fine, I'd say. Busy. They'd nod and change the subject to David's latest case or Melissa's kids or my mother's charity work. I wasn't trying to hide success. I just didn't see the point in explaining something they wouldn't understand or care about. My mother once asked me when I was going to get a real job with benefits. I was literally employing 47 people at that point. The invisibility that had hurt me growing up became my advantage. They weren't watching. They weren't monitoring. They weren't waiting for me to fail because they'd already decided I had. Everything changed at my grandmother's funeral. My father's mother passed away at 89. She was the matriarch. The one person in the family who'd always been kind to me without condition. She'd slip me money as a kid and tell me I was going to surprise everyone someday. The funeral was massive. My grandmother had been involved in every social organization in her community. The reception afterward was held at an upscale hotel, the kind of place my family loved to be seen at. I flew in from Seattle, where I'd relocated our headquarters. I'd been in back-to-back meetings with potential acquisition targets, and I was exhausted. I showed up in a black suit, kept to myself, grieved. After the service, at the reception, I was standing alone near the windows when my Uncle Richard approached. He'd always been cold to me, but today he looked downright hostile. "So, Marcus, still playing with computers?" "Something like that. You know, your father paid for your education. Some of us think you could show a little more ambition. Give him something to be proud of." I stared at him. My grandmother had just been buried, and he was choosing this moment to criticize me. "David's just been offered a partnership track at a multinational firm," he continued. "Melissa's husband is opening a 3rd practice. What are you doing?" Something in me snapped. Not visibly. I didn't raise my voice or make a scene. But internally, something fundamental shifted. "I'm doing fine, Uncle Richard. Thanks for asking." He snorted and walked away. I stood there, watching my family network and perform and play their social games, and I realized something. I didn't need their approval anymore. I'd been holding on to this hope that one day they'd see me, really see me, and be proud. But they never would. Because they'd decided who I was when I was 12 years old, and nothing I did was going to change that narrative. That's when I decided to stop trying. 6 months after my grandmother's funeral, ConnectPoint got its first major acquisition offer. A private equity firm wanted to buy us for $85 million. I was 32 years old. Jennifer Chen called me at midnight when the offer came through. "Marcus, this is life-changing money. You should seriously consider it." I didn't consider it. I turned it down. Not because I was greedy, but because I'd finally understood what I was building. ConnectPoint wasn't just a platform. It was leverage. It was control over an entire ecosystem of service providers. We'd started with event services, but the model worked for everything. Home services, professional services, travel services. Any market where suppliers and consumers needed connecting, we could dominate. I raised a Series C round instead. $50 million. I used it to acquire competitors, expand geographically, and build out our platform infrastructure. By the time I was 34, ConnectPoint was operating in 23 cities across North America. We'd moved beyond just connecting providers. We were actually acquiring the best ones. Premium caterers, exclusive venues, high-end staffing agencies. We weren't just the platform anymore. We were becoming the entire market. Here's something nobody tells you about sudden wealth. It's surprisingly easy to hide. I didn't buy a mansion. I bought a nice but not ostentatious condo in Seattle. I didn't buy a Ferrari. I drove a Tesla like half the tech industry. I wore normal clothes, ate normal food, lived a relatively normal life. My wealth was on paper, in company shares and investment portfolios. I had a financial advisor who handled everything. I had lawyers for legal matters. I had accountants for taxes. But to look at me, I was just another tech guy in jeans and a button-down. I'd see my family twice a year, Christmas and usually one summer gathering. I'd fly home coach because first class felt wasteful. I'd stay at a hotel near my parents' house because staying with them felt suffocating. They still asked me how the computer thing was going. I still said fine. David had made full partner. Melissa was renovating her 4th house. My parents were planning an elaborate anniversary party for their 40th. And I was quietly building an empire they couldn't even conceive of. I started buying property. Not residential, commercial. Specifically, the venues and facilities that ConnectPoint partnered with. Started strategically. One of our highest-rated venues in Chicago was going under. Familydrama, bad management. I bought it through an LLC, installed professional management, kept them on our platform. Then another. Then 3 more. I wasn't trying to monopolize. I was trying to ensure quality control. If we owned the best venues, we could guarantee the best experiences. It was a vertical integration play that made perfect business sense. But it also gave me something else. Real-world assets in the cities where my family lived and celebrated. I bought the hotel where my parents held my father's retirement party. They never knew. I bought the catering company Melissa used for her kids' birthday parties. They never knew. I bought the country club where my mother had her charity luncheons. They definitely never knew. I wasn't planning revenge. I was just buying good assets. But somewhere in the back of my mind I was building a map. A map of every place my family valued, every venue they used to perform their success. And I was quietly taking ownership of all of it. 18 months before my cousin's wedding, the event that would change everything, my father called me. This was unusual. My father didn't call. We'd text about logistics for family gatherings, but actual phone calls were rare. "Marcus, I need to talk to you about something." His voice was strained. My first thought was health. "Mom's sick, he's sick, someone died." "What's wrong?" "It's the business. The consulting firm. We're having cash flow issues." My father's firm. The bedrock of our family's middle-class stability. The thing he'd built over 30 years. "How bad?" "Bad enough that I'm talking to you about it." That stung, but I pushed past it. "What do you need?" "I need a loan. $200,000. Just to get through the next 6 months while we restructure. I'll pay you back with interest. $200,000. A month earlier, I'd written a check for 3 times that amount to invest in a venue property in Manhattan. Dad, I can do that. The silence on the other end was long. You can. Yes. I'll wire it tomorrow. No interest. Marcus, How do you have that kind of money? Here it was. The moment I could explain everything. Tell him about Connect Point, about the acquisitions, about the fact that I was worth more than everyone in our family combined. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the disbelief in his voice. Maybe it was the years of being invisible. Maybe it was the fact that he'd only called me because he was desperate and I was his last option. I've done well with my investments, I said simply. Your investments? Yes. Marcus, are you sure this is legitimate? You're not involved in anything. Dad, it's legitimate. I'll send you the wire details. I hung up before he could question me further. The money hit his account the next day. He texted a curt thank you. We never spoke about it again. 6 months later, his firm stabilized. He restructured, brought on a new partner, one of David's law school friends, and refinanced everything. He never paid me back. Not because he forgot, but because in his mind, it probably didn't count as a real debt. I was just Marcus. The money must have been a fluke, a lucky stock investment, something that didn't require serious repayment. That's when I knew. I knew they would never see me as successful, never see me as capable, never see me as their equal. Because to see me that way would require them to admit they'd been wrong about me for 3 decades. And my family didn't admit they were wrong. My cousin Amanda was getting married. Amanda was Uncle Richard's daughter, the same uncle who'd cornered me at my grandmother's funeral. She was marrying a finance guy from a good family, and this wedding was going to be the social event of the year. The save-the-dates went out a year in advance. Destination wedding at a luxury resort upstate. Black tie. 200 guests. The works. I got my invitation 3 months before the wedding. It came in a cream envelope with gold embossing, and inside was a formal card with a handwritten note from my aunt. Marcus, we hope you can make it. We understand if work commitments prevent your attendance. Translation. We're inviting you out of obligation, but we don't expect you to come. I almost didn't go. I had a board meeting that week, potential investor calls, a dozen legitimate reasons to skip. But then I looked at the venue. Meadowbrook Estate. Luxury events venue, 50 acres, historic mansion, capacity for 300 guests. I pulled up my property portfolio. I'd bought Meadowbrook Estate 8 months earlier through a subsidiary LLC. It was one of our flagship properties. We'd renovated it, upgraded the facilities, and turned it into one of the most sought-after venues in the region. My family was having their most important social event at a venue I owned. And they had no idea. That's when the idea formed. Not revenge exactly, but something else. Revelation. I accepted the invitation. Then I started making calls. First call, to the property manager at Meadowbrook. I want a full briefing on the Whitmore-Patterson wedding. Guest list, timeline, vendors, everything. Second call, to our vendor relations team. Pull up all service contracts for the Whitmore-Patterson event. I want to know every company we're working with. Third call, to my executive assistant. Book me into the hotel closest to Meadowbrook for the wedding weekend. And clear my schedule for the entire week around it. The wedding was using our affiliated catering company, our preferred florist, our contracted valet service. Even the luxury car rentals were through a company we'd acquired 6 months prior. My family was having their perfect wedding inside a system I controlled. I could have revealed myself at any point. Called my aunt, explained I owned the venue, offered a family discount. But I didn't. Because I wanted to see how they'd treat me when they thought I was still just Marcus. Still the family disappointment. Still the one who didn't measure up. I wanted to see who they really were when they thought there were no consequences. 5 days before the wedding, my mother called. Marcus, you're coming to Amanda's wedding. That's the plan. Are you bringing anyone? No, Mum. I'm coming alone. Oz. You know it's black tie. I know. Do you have a proper tuxedo? Because Uncle Richard is very particular about. Mom. I have a tuxedo. Another pause. Marcus, I'm just trying to help. This is an important event for the family, and I don't want you to feel out of place. There it was. The assumption that I wouldn't fit. That I'd embarrass them. I'll be fine, Mom. Well, if you need to rent something decent, I can ask David's tailor. Mom. I said I'm fine. After I hung up, I opened my closet. I had 6 custom tuxedos from a tailor in Milan who outfitted tech executives and celebrities. I selected the most understated one. Midnight blue, perfectly cut, nothing flashy. I wasn't going to this wedding to show off. I was going to watch. To observe. To see exactly how my family treated the version of me they decided was real. And then, when the moment was right, I was going to show them who I actually was. I arrived at Meadowbrook Estate 3 hours before the ceremony. The property looked perfect. My team had outdone themselves. The gardens were immaculate. The mansion gleamed in the morning light. And staff were moving with the coordinated precision of a military operation. I parked in the guest lot and walked the grounds. Nobody knew who I was. To the staff, I was just an early guest. I watched the setup. Tables being arranged, florals being positioned, sound equipment being tested. Everything was perfect because I'd built systems that guaranteed perfection. I checked into my room at the estate's guest house. Yes, the venue had guest accommodations. 12 luxury suites we'd added during renovations specifically for wedding parties. From my window, I could see the entire property. The ceremony lawn, the reception tent, the main house. My phone buzzed. Text from my mother. What time are you getting here? I replied. I'm here. She called immediately. You're here. Where? At the venue. I got in early. Well, don't get in the way of the setup. Amanda's very stressed. Don't get in the way. I own the property, but I should stay invisible. I'll stay out of sight, I said. The ceremony was at 4 o'clock. I arrived at the lawn 15 minutes early, wearing my midnight blue tuxedo, hair freshly cut, looking like any other well-dressed guest. I found my seat, back row, edge position. Course. My family arrived in waves. David and his wife, impossibly polished. Melissa and her husband, designer everything. My parents, greeting guests like they were hosting. My mother spotted me and her face did something complicated. Pride that I looked presentable, confusion about where I'd gotten the tuxedo, and a hint of anxiety that I might somehow mess things up just by existing. She walked over. Marcus. You look nice. Thanks, Mom. That's a good tuxedo. It does the job. She wanted to ask where I got it, how I afforded it. But the ceremony was starting, so she just squeezed my shoulder and returned to her seat 4 rows ahead of me. The ceremony was beautiful. Amanda looked happy. The groom seemed decent. Everything was perfect and expensive and designed to impress. I watched my Uncle Richard in the front row, chest puffed with pride. My aunt dabbing her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. My father nodding approvingly at the venue, the setup, the entire production. They were in my house, celebrating with my resources, and they had no idea. The reception was in the grand tent we'd constructed specifically for large events. Crystal chandeliers, silk draping, a dance floor that had cost $40,000 to install. I found my assigned table. Table 17. Near the back. Seated with distant cousins I'd met maybe twice and some family friends I didn't know. David's table was near the front. Melissa's too. My parents were at the family table with the bride and groom. I sat down and one of the distant cousins, Michael I think, looked at me. How do you know the family? I'm Amanda's cousin. Richard's my uncle. Oh, you're Marcus. He said my name like he'd just remembered a punchline. The tech guy, right? Something like that. That's cool, man. Computers and stuff. Computers and stuff. 36 years old, running a company that employed 300 people and had $1 billion valuation. And I was the computers and stuff guy. Dinner was served. The catering was exceptional. My company's standards guaranteed it. The wine was from our curated list. The service was seamless. I watched my Uncle Richard stand and give a toast about family, tradition, and success. He talked about Amanda's accomplishments, the groom's promising career, the bright future ahead. He mentioned David's recent promotion, Melissa's husband's new practice. He didn't mention me. Not in a mean way. I just didn't exist in his narrative of family success. After dinner I stepped outside for air. The terrace overlooked the gardens, and the sunset was painting everything gold. I was standing there when my Aunt Catherine approached. Uncle Richard's wife. Amanda's mother. The queen of this particular castle. Marcus. You came. I did. The tuxedo is quite nice. Rental. There it was. The assumption. No. It's mine. Oh. She looked me up and down, recalculating. Well, you clean up nicely. Thanks. Your mother tells me you're still in Seattle. Still with the tech thing. The tech thing. The company I'd built from nothing. The empire I'd created. Still with it, I confirmed. That's good. It's good to have hobbies. Though I hope you're thinking about your future. You're not getting any younger. Maybe it's time to look for something more stable. Smiled. I'll keep that in mind. She patted my arm. We worry about you, you know. The whole family does. We just want to see you settled. Settled. Code for achieving something we can brag about. I appreciate the concern. Well, enjoy the evening. The venue is gorgeous, isn't it? Cost a fortune, but for Amanda's day, only the best. She walked away, satisfied that she'd done her duty checking on the family project. I stood there, looking at the venue I owned, serving food from companies I controlled, celebrating a wedding I was bankrolling through my property and service fees. And I was invisible. I would have stayed invisible. I would have finished the evening, congratulated Amanda, and gone home to Seattle. But then Uncle Richard found me. I was at the bar, ordering a drink, when he appeared beside me. He'd had several glasses of champagne, and his face was flushed with alcohol and satisfaction. Marcus. Hell of a party, isn't it? It's beautiful. Cost a goddamn fortune, but worth every penny. You know what this venue charges per person? I knew exactly what we charged per person. I'd approved the pricing structure. I can imagine it's expensive. $250 per head. For 200 guests. You do the math. $50,000. Plus the venue fee, the service charges, the premium package they'd selected. That's significant, I said. That's what success looks like. He leaned in, whiskey breath. That's what you get when you make something of yourself. My jaw tightened. David's here with his firm's managing partner. Networking even at a family wedding. That's drive. That's ambition. He looked at me. What do you do again? Computers. I run a tech company. Right. One of those startup things. You make any money at that? Every instinct told me to walk away. To be the bigger person. To let it go. But something else was rising in me. Something that had been building for years. I do okay, I said quietly. That's good. Maybe one day you'll be able to afford a place like this for a wedding. He gestured at the tent, the mansion, the grounds. This is what we're talking about. This is the standard. It's certainly impressive. Amanda deserves it. She worked hard, married well. The family's proud. He paused. We just want that for all of you, you know? Even you, Marcus. Even you. Like I was the charity case. The one they hoped would eventually stumble into adequacy. Uncle Richard, I said slowly. Can I ask you something? Sure. Do you know who owns this venue? He blinked. What? Meadowbrook Estate. Do you know who owns it? Some corporation, I guess. Why? Just curious. It's a beautiful property. Hell yes it is. Worth every penny of the $25,000 venue fee. $25,000. Plus $50,000 for catering. Plus $15,000 for florals from our contracted florist. plus $8,000 for the valet service, plus another $12,000 in various service fees and rentals. $110,000 minimum, flowing through companies I owned. That's a lot of money, I observed. That's what it costs to do things right. He clapped my shoulder. One day maybe you'll understand. And then he walked away. I stood at the bar, my drink untouched, and something crystallized. I was done being invisible. I called my property manager. Sarah, it's Marcus. Mr. Chen. Is everything all right? Everything's fine. I need you to prepare a document for me. I want it printed, bound, and delivered to me at the guest house in 30 minutes. What kind of document? Ownership documentation for Meadowbrook Estate. Full property details, LLC structure. My name clearly listed as principal owner. And pull the service contracts for the Whitmore-Patterson wedding. All of them. Are you sure? Very sure. I'll have it ready in 20 minutes. I went back to my room. Changed into a fresh shirt. Looked at myself in the mirror. For 36 years, I'd let my family define me. Let them decide I was less than them. Let them treat me like the member who didn't quite measure up. I'd thought building success in silence was enough. That one day they'd figure it out and feel foolish. But they never would figure it out. Because they'd never look. So I was going to show them. Not with cruelty. Not with malice. Just with truth. Sarah delivered the documents. I flipped through them. Property deeds, LLC filings, service contracts, everything. All bearing my name. All showing the infrastructure I'd built. I tucked the folder under my arm and walked back to the reception. The party was in full swing. Dancing, drinking, celebration. My family was in their element, networking and laughing and performing success. I found my mother first. Mom, can I talk to you for a second? She turned concerned. Is everything all right? Everything's fine. I just need a moment. We stepped to the side of the tent. She looked worried, like I was about to confess some crisis. I need to tell you something, I said. Something I should have told you years ago. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. But you know how you've been asking about my work. About what I do. Yes. I run a company called ConnectPoint. We're a service marketplace platform. We connect clients with premium service providers. She nodded slowly, not understanding why I was telling her this now. We operate in 23 cities. We employ over 300 people. We process about $200 million in transactions annually. Her eyes widened slightly. And we don't just operate the platform. We own many of the service providers. Caterers, venues, staffing companies, transportation services. Marcus, what are you saying? I'm saying I own this venue, Mom. Meadowbrook Estate. I bought it 2 years ago through one of my companies. The color drained from her face. I own the catering company serving dinner tonight. I own the florist who did the arrangements. I own the valet company parking cars. That's not possible. I opened the folder and showed her the documents. Property deed. LLC filings. Name. She stared at the papers like they were written in a foreign language. Uncle Richard and Aunt Catherine are having Amanda's wedding at my property, using my services, and they have no idea. Marcus. She couldn't finish the sentence. You asked me if I had a proper tuxedo. This tuxedo cost $4,000. I own 6 of them. I have a condo in Seattle worth $3 million. I have investments across 15 states. And I have a company valuation that, on paper, makes me worth more than everyone in this family combined. She was shaking. Why didn't you tell us? Because every time I tried, you changed the subject. Every time you asked about work, it was with this tone that expected failure. You couldn't conceive that I'd actually built something. That's not fair. Mom, Dad asked me for $200,000 18 months ago. I wired it the next day. He never paid me back. When I told him I had that kind of money, his first thought was that I was doing something illegal. Tears were forming in her eyes. I'm not telling you this to be cruel. I'm telling you because I'm done being invisible. Word spread fast. My mother apparently found my father immediately. He found David. David found Melissa. Within 15 minutes, my entire immediate family was gathered in a side room off the main reception hall. My father looked stunned. David looked skeptical. Melissa looked confused. "Show us," David said. "Show us the documents." I handed him the folder. He read everything. The property deeds, the corporate filings, the service contracts. His lawyer brain processing every word. "This is real," he said finally. "It's real," I confirmed. My father sat down heavily. "You own this place. I own this place. And the catering company. And the catering company. Marcus, this is..." He couldn't finish. Melissa was crying. "Why didn't you tell us?" "When?" "Yes. When should I have told you?" "At David's celebration when Dad introduced me as the one still figuring things out. At Christmas when Mom asked about my computer hobby. At Grandma's funeral when Uncle Richard asked what I was doing to make Dad proud." Silence. "I built this in silence because silence was all you gave me," I said. "You decided who I was when I was a kid, and nothing I did changed that narrative. So I stopped trying to change it." David was still looking at the documents. "The company valuation. Is this accurate?" "It's conservative. We're in acquisition talks that could double it." Jesus Christ. He looked at me. "You're a billionaire. On paper. Most of it's locked up in equity." "You're a billionaire," he repeated. "And you've been flying coach to family dinners. I don't need first class to validate my success." My mother spoke up, voice shaking. "We didn't know. Marcus, we didn't know." "You didn't want to know," I said quietly. "There's a difference." My father looked up at me. For the first time in my life, I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Not pride. Not even respect. Fear. He was afraid of me. Or afraid of what this revelation meant. "What do you want?" he asked. "What do I want? From us. Now that we know. What do you want?" And there it was. The transaction. Even now, even in this moment, he couldn't just sit with the information. He needed to know the angle, the cost, the consequences. "I don't want anything, Dad. I'm just done pretending to be someone I'm not." The door opened. Uncle Richard walked in. "What's going on? People are asking where the family went." He stopped when he saw our faces. "What happened?" My father stood up. "Richard, sit down." "I don't need to sit down. What's going on?" David handed him the folder. "Marcus owns the venue. And most of the companies servicing the wedding." Richard looked at the folder like it might bite him. "What? The venue? The catering? The flowers? Marcus owns them." He flipped through the documents, his face going from confused to red to purple. "This is a joke." "It's not a joke," I said. He looked at me. Really looked at me for maybe the first time in his life. You own Meadowbrook Estate. Through an LLC, yes. That's... How much did this place cost?" "The purchase price was $11 million. We put another 3 into renovations." He staggered slightly. $14 million. Plus or minus. You have $14 million. I have significantly more than $14 million, Uncle Richard. His face twisted. Anger, disbelief, and something else. Something that looked like betrayal. "And you didn't tell us. You let us pay full price for. Why would I give you a discount?" The question hung in the air. "You spent the last 3 decades telling me I was a failure. You cornered me at my grandmother's funeral to lecture me about ambition. You've never asked me a single meaningful question about my life or my work. And now you're upset that I didn't offer you a family rate. That's different." "How is it different? You wanted me to be successful by your definition of success. Law, medicine, finance, something you could understand and brag about. But I built something you couldn't even conceive of, so it didn't count." "Marcus." My mother tried. "No, Mum. This is important. I turned back to Richard. You stood at that bar an hour ago and told me that one day maybe I'd be able to afford a place like this. You used my family's most important celebration to remind me that I don't measure up. I didn't mean. You meant every word. You've always meant every word. All of you have. Melissa was sobbing now. David was staring at the floor. My parents looked shattered. And Uncle Richard looked furious. So what is this? He demanded. Revenge. You've been sitting on this information just to humiliate us. I wasn't sitting on anything. I've been building a business while you all decided I wasn't worth paying attention to. We're family. Family asks questions. Family shows interest. Family doesn't dismiss someone for 30 years and then get upset when they stop sharing. Richard threw the folder on the table. This is bullshit. You're being petty. Petty would be canceling the contracts and shutting down the wedding. I'm not doing that. Amanda's celebration will continue exactly as planned, using my resources, which I'm providing at the agreed-upon price. You want us to pay you for your own cousin's wedding. You're already paying me. The contracts were signed months ago through my companies. I'm just letting you know who you've been paying. He turned to my father. Are you hearing this? Your son is shaking us down. I'm not shaking anyone down. My voice rose for the first time. I'm running businesses. Businesses you've been using because they're the best in the market. Businesses I built while you all wrote me off. Aunt Catherine burst into the room. Richard, people are asking. She saw our faces. What on earth is going on? Richard couldn't speak. My father gestured weakly at the folder. Catherine read the documents. Her reaction was somehow worse than Richard's. She went completely still. Marcus owns this venue. Yes, my mother whispered. And the catering company. Yes. Catherine looked at me. How long have you known we were having the wedding here? Since you booked it. About 14 months ago. And you didn't tell us. You didn't ask who owned it. Don't be smart with me. I'm not being smart. I'm being honest. You booked a venue through standard channels. My company's provided services. That's how the business works. But we're family. Exactly. We're family. So why am I always the last to know about celebrations? Why is my name an afterthought in toasts? Why do you seat me in the back and introduce me with apologies? She had no answer. You're having a beautiful wedding for Amanda, I continued. Everything is perfect. The only thing that's changed is that now you know who made it perfect. Richard found his voice again. We want a refund. Everyone turned to stare at him. Richard, Catherine started. No, I'm not paying this. He couldn't find the word. I'm not paying him to embarrass us. You're not paying me to embarrass you, I said calmly. You're paying market rate for premium services. Services you were happy with 30 minutes ago. That was before. Before you knew I was successful. So my services were valuable when you thought I was nobody. But now they're worthless because I'm somebody. David stood up. Marcus, let's all calm down. I am calm. Uncle Richard is the one demanding a refund at his daughter's wedding reception. Catherine grabbed Richard's arm. We are not making a scene. Not tonight. Not at Amanda's wedding. But, not tonight. Her voice was steel. Richard fell silent, but his face was pure rage. Catherine turned to me. We need to get back out there. People are starting to notice. Of course, I said. And we're going to continue as if nothing has changed, she continued. Because nothing has changed. Amanda's day is not going to be ruined by this. Like my success was a scandal to be managed. I agree completely, I said. Tonight is about Amanda and her happiness. Good. Catherine straightened her dress. Then we all go back out there, we smile, we celebrate, and we discuss this later. There's nothing to discuss, I said. The business arrangements are complete. The wedding will proceed. I'll congratulate Amanda and leave in the morning. Leave. I have a flight back to Seattle. My mother grabbed my arm. Marcus, you can't just drop this bomb and leave. I didn't drop a bomb, Mom. I just stopped hiding. We filed back out to the reception in silence. The party was still going. Nobody had noticed the family drama. Amanda was dancing with her new husband. Guests were laughing, drinking, celebrating. Everything was perfect. I returned to my table at the back. My distant cousins were gone, probably dancing or mingling. I sat alone and watched. My family had dispersed back to their positions. My parents at the family table, looking shell-shocked. David and Melissa trying to act normal. Uncle Richard and Aunt Catherine smiling through gritted teeth. A waiter approached my table. "Can I get you anything, sir?" "Whiskey." "Neat." He returned with a generous pour of top-shelf bourbon. I sipped it slowly and watched my family perform. After about 20 minutes, Amanda approached my table. "Cousin Marcus, I barely got to talk to you." She was radiant, happy, genuinely delighted to see me. "Amanda, congratulations. Beautiful wedding. Isn't it? This venue is like a dream. And the food. Oh my God, the food. It's excellent. I'm so glad you could come. Mom said you might not be able to make it." "Course she did. I wouldn't have missed it," I said honestly. She hugged me. Real hug. No judgment, no condescension. Just family affection. "You look really handsome in that tux," she said. "Very James Bond." I laughed. "Thanks. Come dance. Don't sit here by yourself." "I'm fine, really. Marcus Chen, get your butt on that dance floor." She pulled me up and dragged me into the crowd. We danced, badly on my part, and for a few minutes everything was just simple and good. This was the family I'd wanted. The version where I was just included, no questions asked. But as the song ended and Amanda was pulled away by bridesmaids, I caught my uncle's eye across the room. He was staring at me with pure, undiluted hatred. I left at 6 a.m., packed my bag, dressed in travel clothes, and walked down to the main house to settle my room bill. The property manager, Sarah, was at the desk. "Mr. Chen. Early checkout. Flight to catch." She processed the payment. "The wedding was beautiful. Your family seemed to have a wonderful time." "They did. Will you be visiting the property again soon?" "Probably not for a while." She nodded, professional enough not to ask questions. As I walked to my car, I took one last look at Meadowbrook Estate. My property. My investment. My proof that I'd built something real. But it felt hollow. Proven my point. I'd shown them who I was. And instead of pride or admiration or even simple acknowledgement, I'd gotten fear, anger, and resentment. My phone buzzed. Text from David. "We need to talk. Call me when you land." Then one from Melissa. "Marcus, please don't leave like this." Then one from my mother. "I love you. Please remember that." Nothing from my father. Nothing from Richard or Catherine. I got in my car and drove away. I called David from the airport. He answered on the first ring. "Marcus, you wanted to talk." Long pause. "Yeah. I don't even know where to start." "Start wherever you want. Why didn't you tell us about any of it?" "I tried. You weren't listening. That's not fair." "David, I sent you a link to our Series B funding announcement 2 years ago. You never responded. I mentioned the business at 3 different Christmases. You changed the subject every time." Silence. "I wasn't hiding," I continued. "I was just living my life. You all assumed I was struggling, so you stopped asking questions. But this is... Marcus, you're worth hundreds of millions of dollars. On paper. That's a meaningless distinction. You're wealthy. You're successful. You built something extraordinary. And you let us treat you like you were barely getting by. You wanted to treat me that way," I said quietly. "It made you feel better about yourselves. That's not true, isn't it? I was the failure that made your success feel more significant. The son who didn't measure up, so Dad's pride in you felt more earned. The brother who was still figuring it out, while you and Melissa had it all together. Jesus, Marcus. I'm not saying you consciously wanted me to fail, but you were comfortable with me being less than you. And when evidence suggested otherwise, you ignored it. Another long pause. What do we do now? David asked. What do you mean? I mean, how do we fix this? You can't fix it, David. It's not broken. It just is. That's not acceptable. It has to be acceptable. Because I'm not interested in relitigating 30 years of family dynamics. I just wanted you to know the truth. Richard couldn't speak. My father gestured weakly at the folder. Catherine read the documents. Her reaction was somehow worse than Richard's. She went completely still. Marcus owns this venue. Yes, my mother whispered. And the catering company. Yes. Catherine looked at me. How long have you known we were having the wedding here? Since you booked it. About 14 months ago. And you didn't tell us. You didn't ask who owned it. Don't be smart with me. I'm not being smart. I'm being honest. You booked a venue through standard channels. My company's provided services. That's how the business works. But we're family. Exactly. We're family. So why am I always the last to know about celebrations? Why is my name an afterthought in toasts? Why do you seat me in the back and introduce me with apologies? She had no answer. You're having a beautiful wedding for Amanda, I continued. Everything is perfect. The only thing that's changed is that now you know who made it perfect. Richard found his voice again. We want a refund. Everyone turned to stare at him. Richard, Catherine started. No, I'm not paying this. He couldn't find the word. I'm not paying him to embarrass us. You're not paying me to embarrass you, I said calmly. You're paying market rate for premium services. Services you were happy with 30 minutes ago. That was before. Before you knew I was successful. So my services were valuable when you thought I was nobody. But now they're worthless because I'm somebody. David stood up. Marcus, let's all calm down. I am calm. Uncle Richard is the one demanding a refund at his daughter's wedding reception. Catherine grabbed Richard's arm. We are not making a scene. Not tonight. Not at Amanda's wedding. But, not tonight. Her voice was steel. Richard fell silent, but his face was pure rage. Catherine turned to me. We need to get back out there. People are starting to notice. Of course, I said. And we're going to continue as if nothing has changed, she continued. Because nothing has changed. Amanda's day is not going to be ruined by this. Like my success was a scandal to be managed. I agree completely, I said. Tonight is about Amanda and her happiness. Good. Catherine straightened her dress. Then we all go back out there, we smile, we celebrate, and we discuss this later. There's nothing to discuss, I said. The business arrangements are complete. The wedding will proceed. I'll congratulate Amanda and leave in the morning. Leave. I have a flight back to Seattle. My mother grabbed my arm. Marcus, you can't just drop this bomb and leave. I didn't drop a bomb, Mom. I just stopped hiding. We filed back out to the reception in silence. The party was still going. Nobody had noticed the family drama. Amanda was dancing with her new husband. Guests were laughing, drinking, celebrating. Everything was perfect. I returned to my table at the back. My distant cousins were gone, probably dancing or mingling. I sat alone and watched. My family had dispersed back to their positions. My parents at the family table, looking shell-shocked. David and Melissa trying to act normal. Uncle Richard and Aunt Catherine smiling through gritted teeth. A waiter approached my table. Can I get you anything, sir? Whiskey. Neat. He returned with a generous pour of top-shelf bourbon. I sipped it slowly and watched my family perform. After about 20 minutes, Amanda approached my table. Cousin Marcus. I barely got to talk to you. She was radiant. Happy. genuinely delighted to see me. Amanda, congratulations. Beautiful wedding. Isn't it? This venue is like a dream. And the food. Oh my God, the food. It's excellent. I'm so glad you could come. Mom said you might not be able to make it. Course she did. I wouldn't have missed it, I said honestly. She hugged me. Real hug. No judgment, no condescension. Just family affection. You look really handsome in that tux, she said. Very James Bond. I laughed. Thanks. Come dance. Don't sit here by yourself. I'm fine, really. Marcus Chen, get your butt on that dance floor. She pulled me up and dragged me into the crowd. We danced, badly on my part, and for a few minutes everything was just simple and good. This was the family I'd wanted. The version where I was just included, no questions asked. But as the song ended and Amanda was pulled away by bridesmaids, I caught my uncle's eye across the room. He was staring at me with pure, undiluted hatred. I left at 6 a.m., packed my bag, dressed in travel clothes, and walked down to the main house to settle my room bill. The property manager, Sarah, was at the desk. Mr. Chen. Early checkout. Flight to catch. She processed the payment. The wedding was beautiful. Your family seemed to have a wonderful time. They did. Will you be visiting the property again soon? Probably not for a while. She nodded, professional enough not to ask questions. As I walked to my car, I took one last look at Meadowbrook Estate. My property. My investment. My proof that I'd built something real. But it felt hollow. Proven my point. I'd shown them who I was. And instead of pride or admiration or even simple acknowledgement, I'd gotten fear, anger, and resentment. My phone buzzed. Text from David. We need to talk. Call me when you land. Then one from Melissa. Marcus, please don't leave like this. Then one from my mother. I love you. Please remember that. Nothing from my father. Nothing from Richard or Catherine. I got in my car and drove away. I called David from the airport. He answered on the first ring. Marcus. You wanted to talk. Long pause. Yeah. I don't even know where to start. Start wherever you want. Why didn't you tell us about any of it? I tried. You weren't listening. That's not fair. David, I sent you a link to our Series B funding announcement 2 years ago. You never responded. I mentioned the business at 3 different Christmases. You changed the subject every time. Silence. I wasn't hiding, I continued. I was just living my life. You all assumed I was struggling, so you stopped asking questions. But this is, Marcus, you're worth hundreds of millions of dollars. On paper. That's a meaningless distinction. You're wealthy. You're successful. You built something extraordinary. And you let us treat you like you were barely getting by. You wanted to treat me that way, I said quietly. It made you feel better about yourselves. That's not true, isn't it? I was the failure that made your success feel more significant. The son who didn't measure up, so Dad's pride in you felt more earned. The brother who was still figuring it out, while you and Melissa had it all together. Jesus, Marcus. I'm not saying you consciously wanted me to fail, but you were comfortable with me being less than you. And when evidence suggested otherwise, you ignored it. Another long pause. What do we do now? David asked. What do you mean? I mean, how do we fix this? You can't fix it, David. It's not broken. It just is. That's not acceptable. It has to be acceptable. Because I'm not interested in relitigating 30 years of family dynamics. I just wanted you to know the truth. And Uncle Richard. What he said. Richard is angry because his entire worldview got disrupted. He'll get over it or he won't. He's talking about cutting you out. Family gatherings, holidays, everything. Actually laughed. Cut me out of what? The family that already treated me like an afterthought. David, I've been cut out. I just didn't realize it was intentional. It wasn't intentional. It doesn't matter if it was intentional. It was real. I heard him breathe heavily on the other end. "I'm sorry," he said finally. "For all of it. For not asking. For not listening. For being part of the problem." It was the most honest thing he'd ever said to me. "I appreciate that. Are you coming to Christmas?" "I don't know." Mom's devastated. Mom's embarrassed. There's a difference. That's harsh. It's true. She's not devastated that she hurt me. She's devastated that she didn't know. That she looks foolish. You don't know that. David, the first thing she asked when she found out was why I didn't tell her. Not, "I'm proud of you." Not, "This is amazing." Just, "Why didn't you tell us so she could figure out how to not feel bad about missing it?" He couldn't argue with that. "I need to board," I said. "Take care of yourself." Marcus, wait. Hung up. It arrived 3 days later. Subject: "We need to discuss your loan." Marcus: "I've been reviewing my finances with my accountant, and we need to address the $200,000 you lent me last year. Given your recent revelations about your wealth, I think it's appropriate that we formalize a repayment plan. I'm prepared to pay back the full amount plus 5% annual interest over the next 3 years. Please send me wire instructions and we'll begin monthly payments immediately. Regards, Dad." I read it 3 times. Not, "I'm proud of you." Not, "I'm sorry for doubting you." Not even, "Congratulations on your success." Just a formal transactional email about money. I replied, "The loan was a gift. I never expected repayment. Consider it settled." Marcus. His response came within an hour. "I don't want your charity." So that's what it had become. My help was charity. My success was something to be resented, not celebrated. I didn't respond. Melissa created a family group chat 2 weeks after the wedding. "Melissa, we need to figure out Thanksgiving. Who's hosting?" "Mom, I can host if everyone can travel here." "David, we can do it. Our place is bigger." Melissa, "Perfect. David and Sarah's house it is. Confirm you're coming." Dad, "Confirmed." Mom, "Confirmed." Melissa, "Confirmed." David, "Obviously confirmed." A long pause. Melissa, Marcus. I stared at my phone. This was the moment. The decision point. Could confirm. Show up. Pretend everything was normal. Let them slowly absorb the truth of who I was and hope things would change. Or I could acknowledge reality. "Marcus, I'm going to skip this year. Have a great Thanksgiving." The typing indicators appeared immediately. Multiple people responding. "Marcus, please don't do this." Melissa, "It's one dinner. Please come." David, "We need to talk about this as a family." Marcus, "There's nothing to talk about. I'm just not coming to Thanksgiving." Dad, "This is childish." I stared at that message. Childish. My father was calling me childish for not attending a family gathering where I'd spent my entire life being dismissed. Marcus, "I'm not being childish. I'm being honest. Thanksgiving at David's sounds great. You'll all have a wonderful time. I just won't be there." Mom, "You're punishing us." Marcus, "I'm not punishing anyone. I'm choosing not to participate in a dynamic that doesn't work for me anymore." Dad, "If you don't come to Thanksgiving, don't expect to be invited to future events." There it was. The ultimatum. Marcus, "I understand." I muted the chat. She showed up at my office unannounced 3 weeks later. My assistant called. "Mr. Chen, there's a Melissa Warren here to see you. She says she's your sister." I almost said I was busy. Almost had security escort her out. But curiosity won. "Send her up." Melissa looked out of place in my office. It was modern, minimalist, all glass and chrome. She was in designer casual wear that probably cost a month of my early salary. But here in my space, she looked small. "Nice office," she said. "Thanks. Impressive view. Seattle has good views." We stood there awkwardly. She wasn't here for small talk, but she didn't seem to know how to start. "Why are you here, Mel?" She flinched at the nickname. I hadn't called her that in years. "To apologize." Waited. "I've been thinking about everything since the wedding. About how we treated you. How I treated you. Okay. And you're right. About all of it. We didn't listen. We didn't ask. We made assumptions and then we just stopped looking. Okay, I said again. I'm sorry, Marcus. I'm genuinely, truly sorry. I believed her. I could see it in her face. Real remorse, real guilt. I appreciate that, I said. But you're not coming to Thanksgiving. No. Why? If we're apologizing, if we're acknowledging what we did wrong, why won't you come? I sat down and gestured for her to do the same. Because an apology doesn't erase 30 years, Mel. It's a start, but it's not a solution. What would be a solution? I don't know if there is one. How do you rebuild a relationship that was never built correctly in the first place? She looked stricken. I don't hate you, I continued. Any of you. I'm not angry. I'm just done. I'm done trying to fit into a family narrative that has no room for who I actually am. We can make room. Can you? Because from where I'm sitting, the family didn't want me to be successful. They wanted me to be acceptable. And those aren't the same thing. That's not fair. Melissa, Uncle Richard demanded a refund when he found out I owned the venue. Dad's first response to learning about my wealth was to ask what I wanted from them. Mom wanted to know why I didn't tell her, not what I'd built. None of you asked about the company, about what I'd created. You all just tried to figure out how my success affected you. She couldn't argue. 'Cause it was true. I need time, I said. Maybe a lot of time. Maybe forever. But I need space from a family dynamic that's been toxic for my entire life. We're not toxic. You are to me. Not intentionally. But yes, you are. She started crying. Real tears, not manipulative ones. I don't want to lose you, she said. You never had me. Not really. You had a version of me that fit your expectations. But the real me, the one who built businesses and took risks and succeeded, that person was invisible to you. What can I do? Nothing. There's nothing to do. Just accept it. She left 20 minutes later, still crying. I stood at my window and looked out at the city I'd built a life in. I felt empty, but also relieved. 3 months passed. Christmas came and went. I sent gifts but didn't attend. My life in Seattle continued. The business grew. We closed 2 major acquisitions. We expanded into 3 new markets. I dated someone for a while. A teacher who knew nothing about tech or business and didn't care about my money. It ended amicably when she accepted a position in Portland. I was fine. Not happy, not sad. It was fine. Then I got a letter. Not an email. An actual handwritten letter, forwarded from my parents' address. It was from my grandmother's estate lawyer. Dear Marcus, as executor of Ruth Chen's estate, I'm reaching out regarding a sealed letter she left for you, with instructions that it be delivered 1 year after her death. That date has now passed. The letter is enclosed. She was specific that it reach you and only you. Inside was a second envelope. My name in my grandmother's handwriting. I opened it with shaking hands. Dearest Marcus, if you're reading this, I've been gone for a year. I hope that year has been kind to you. I'm writing this letter because I know something about you that the rest of the family doesn't see. I've always known it. You're the one who will surprise them all. I don't know what form that surprise will take. Maybe you'll build something extraordinary. Maybe you'll discover something important. Maybe you'll just live a life so authentically yours that it makes everyone else's pretending look ridiculous. But I know you'll do it quietly. Because that's who you are. You don't need applause. You don't need validation. You just need to know yourself that you matter. I want you to know something though. You've always mattered to me. Every awkward family dinner where you sat quietly while they bragged about David and Melissa. I saw you. Every time they forgot to mention your accomplishments. I noticed. Every time they made you feel small, I ached for you. I couldn't fix it. 'Cause the problem wasn't you. It was them. They're so busy performing success that they can't recognize the real thing when it's sitting right in front of them. By the time you read this, something will have happened. I don't know what it is, but I know you. You'll have reached a breaking point. You'll have shown them who you really are, and they'll have reacted badly. I want you to know that you don't owe them anything. Not your success, not your presence, not your forgiveness. But I also want you to know that anger is a heavy thing to carry. And resentment is even heavier. You don't have to forgive them. But eventually you should release them. Not for their sake. For yours. Live your life, Marcus. The big, successful, authentic life you've built. Don't let their limitations limit you. You were always my favorite. Don't tell the others. All my love. Grandma. I read it 7 times. Then I cried for the first time since the wedding. Not because I was sad. Because someone had seen me. Really seen me. And even though she was gone, knowing that mattered more than I'd realized. Spring arrived in Seattle. Cherry blossoms, rain, the city waking up from winter. My assistant knocked on my office door. Mr. Chen. Your mother's online too. She says it's important. I almost didn't take the call. But something made me pick up. Hi, Mom. Marcus. Her voice was strained. Your father's in the hospital. My stomach dropped. What happened? Heart attack. He's stable now, but it was serious. He's going to need surgery. Which hospital? He told me. It was in my hometown, 3 hours away by plane. I'll be there tonight, I said. He looked smaller than I remembered. My father had always been this larger-than-life figure. Not physically, he was average height, average build. But his presence was big. His opinions, his judgments, his expectations. Now he looked fragile. Tubes and monitors and hospital gowns that stripped away all pretense. My mother was there. David was there. Melissa was flying in tomorrow. I stood in the doorway, unsure if I should enter. My mother saw me. Marcus. You came. Of course I came. He hugged me. A real hug, desperate and grateful. My father's eyes opened. Saw me. Something flickered across his face. Marcus. Hi, Dad. You came. I did. He nodded slightly. Then winced from the movement. The doctor came in, explained the surgery, the recovery, the prognosis. It was serious but survivable. He'd need bypass surgery. He'd need lifestyle changes. He'd need time. We all stood there processing. After the doctor left, my father spoke again. Marcus, I need to talk to you. Dad, you should rest. I need to say this. While I can. My mother and David stepped into the hallway, giving us space. My father looked at me. I was wrong about you. Waited. Your whole life I was wrong. I measured you against David, against what I thought success should look like. And I missed who you actually were. Dad. Let me finish. Please. He took a shaky breath. The money you lent me. You said it was a gift, but I know what it was. It was you being a better son than I was a father. You helped me when I needed it, even after I'd spent decades making you feel inadequate. You didn't make me feel. I did. I know I did. And I'm sorry. The word hung in the air. Sorry. From a man who never apologized. I don't know how to fix this, he continued. I don't know if I can. But I want you to know that I see you now. I see what you built. I see who you are. And I'm proud of you. I'd waited my whole life to hear those words. Now that I had them, I didn't know what to do with them. I need you to understand something, I said carefully. I didn't build my company to prove anything to you. I didn't succeed to make you proud. I did it for myself. I know. And I can't go back to how things were. I can't pretend that 30 years of being dismissed doesn't matter just because you finally saw me. I know that too. So where does that leave us? He smiled weakly. I don't know. But maybe we can figure it out. My father survived the surgery. The recovery was slow but steady. While he was in the hospital, my mother called a family meeting. Not at their house, at David's. Neutral ground. Everyone was there. Mom, David, Melissa. Even Uncle Richard and Aunt Catherine, though they looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. We need to talk about what happened at Amanda's wedding, my mother began. Do we? Richard muttered. Yes, we do. Because this family is broken, and we need to fix it. It's not broken, Catherine started. It is. My mother's voice was firm. We treated Marcus like he didn't matter for his entire life. And when he finally showed us who he really was, we got angry instead of proud. That's broken. Silence. Melissa spoke up. I've been thinking about this a lot. About why we reacted the way we did. Enlighten us, Richard said sarcastically. Because Marcus succeeding meant we were wrong. About him, about ourselves, about everything. And admitting we were wrong was harder than being angry at him for not telling us. More silence. David nodded slowly. She's right. Marcus not fitting our definition of success made us feel better about ourselves. When he exceeded that definition, it forced us to examine our own lives. This is ridiculous, Richard started. No, Richard, it's not. My mother cut him off. You demanded a refund at your daughter's wedding because you couldn't handle that Marcus was more successful than you. That's not his fault. That's yours. Richard's face went red, but he didn't argue. My mother turned to me. Marcus, I know we can't undo the past. But I'm asking, we're all asking, for a chance to do better moving forward. I looked around the room. At my family, flawed and complicated and capable of such casual cruelty but also genuine love. I need you to understand that I'm not the same person I was, I said. I'm not going to shrink myself to make you comfortable. I'm not going to hide my success or downplay my achievements. If that makes you uncomfortable, that's something you'll have to work through. We understand, David said. And I need space. I need time to figure out what family means to me now. What relationship I want with all of you. That's fair, Melissa said quietly. I looked at Richard. He hadn't spoken since my mother shut him down. Uncle Richard, I don't need your approval. I don't need your respect. But if you can't be civil, then I don't need to be around you. He stared at me, then slowly nodded. I was out of line. At the wedding, I was surprised and I handled it badly. It wasn't quite an apology, but it was something. Okay, I said. So what happens now? My mother asked. I don't know, I admitted. Maybe we try. Maybe we build something new. Maybe we just acknowledge that family is complicated and do the best we can. I can live with that, David said. Me too, Melissa agreed. My mother nodded, tears in her eyes. Thanksgiving at my place. Not my condo, I'd bought a house. Nothing ostentatious, but spacious enough for entertaining. My family came. All of them. Even Richard and Catherine, though things were still awkward. My father was recovering well. Thinner, healthier, softer somehow. He still had opinions, but he asked questions now too. Over dinner, David asked about a new acquisition ConnectPoint was pursuing. A real question, genuinely interested. Melissa asked if I was dating anyone. When I said no, she offered to set me up with a friend of hers. I declined, but the offer felt like normalcy. My mother asked if I needed anything for the house. Just being motherly, without the undercurrent of disappointment. And my father, when he thought no one was listening, leaned over and whispered, "You did good, son. With all of this, you did real good." It wasn't perfect. Richard still seemed uncomfortable. Catherine was overly polite in that way that revealed deep awkwardness. There were moments of tension, old patterns trying to reassert themselves. But it was different. Better. We were trying. I never made peace with Uncle Richard. Not really. He came to family gatherings, we were civil, but there was always distance. Some bridges, once burned, don't fully rebuild. And that was okay. I learned that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. Doesn't mean pretending nothing happened. It means releasing the weight of anger so you can move forward. I didn't need my family to validate my success. I'd proven that to myself. But I also learned that humans are complicated. My parents weren't villains. They were just limited people who'd made limiting assumptions. My siblings weren't enemies. They were products of the same dysfunction I'd escaped. And I was choosing, consciously and deliberately, to build something new with them. Not because I owed it to them, but because I wanted to. Because my grandmother was right. Resentment was heavy, and I was tired of carrying it. 2 years after the wedding, Amanda called me. "Cousin Marcus, I need a favor." "What's up?" "I'm pregnant, having a baby shower, and I want to hold it at Meadowbrook Estate." I laughed. "You know I own that, right?" "Obviously. That's why I'm asking you directly. Can we get a family discount?" There was something beautiful about her directness. No pretense, no awkwardness, just family asking family for a favor. "Yeah, Amanda. You can absolutely get a family discount." "Yes, thank you. Also, I need you there. Not as the owner. As family." "I'll be there. At a table up front this time. Not in the back." "Deal." After we hung up, I stood at my office window and thought about the journey. From invisible middle child to billionaire entrepreneur. From family disappointment to respected success story. But more importantly, from someone who measured his worth by others' opinions to someone who knew his own value. The revenge, if you could call it that, wasn't in the revelation. It wasn't in showing them what I'd built. The revenge was in no longer needing their approval. The revenge was in building a life so full and authentic that their limitations couldn't touch it. The revenge was in being free. Success isn't about proving people wrong, it's about proving yourself right. The greatest victory isn't in forcing recognition from those who dismissed you, but in building a life so fulfilling that their recognition no longer matters. But here's what they don't tell you about that victory. It's lonely at first, and complicated forever. I was in the middle of a board meeting when my phone buzzed with an emergency alert. Jennifer Chen, my first investor, now board member and friend, glanced at me as I checked it. A text from Melissa. "Call me now. It's about David." I excused myself and stepped out into the hallway. "Mel, what's wrong?" Her voice was shaking. "David's firm is being investigated. Federal investigators. Something about client fraud. Marcus, they raided his office this morning." My stomach dropped. "Is David implicated?" "I don't know. He won't talk to anyone. He's at his house with lawyers. Mom and Dad are there. It's a nightmare. I'll catch the next flight out." "Marcus, wait. Before you do. Uncle Richard is telling everyone this is somehow your fault." "What?" "He's saying you were so focused on showing everyone up that you pushed David to make bad decisions. To try to keep up with you. It's insane, but people are listening." Course they were. Because when successful people fall, everyone looks for someone to blame. And I was the obvious target, the one who disrupted the family hierarchy. "Let them talk," I said. "I'm coming anyway." David's house looked like a crime scene. News vans were parked outside. Reporters were camped on the lawn. Neighbors were gawking from their windows. I parked 2 blocks away and walked up through the backyard. My mother opened the door. She looked 10 years older than when I'd seen her at Thanksgiving. "Marcus." Thank God. Inside the scene was chaos. David sat at his kitchen table, surrounded by lawyers. My father was on the phone with someone, his voice tight with stress. Melissa was crying in the corner while her husband tried to comfort her. David looked up when I entered. His face was gray. "You shouldn't be here." "Probably not. But here I am." One of the lawyers, a woman in an expensive suit, stood up. "And you are his brother, the tech entrepreneur." "That's me." She looked me up and down, calculating. "Your presence here could complicate things. The optics." "I don't care about optics. What's happening?" David answered before his lawyer could. "One of the senior partners at my firm was running a scheme. Embezzlement, fraud, fake billings. I didn't know about it, but I worked on some of the cases. The feds think I might have been involved." "Were you?" No. But I signed documents. I did work. And now they're treating me like I was part of it." The lead lawyer cleared her throat. "Mr. Chen, we need to discuss legal strategy without." "He stays," David said firmly. "He's family." Those 2 words hit me harder than they should have. Uncle Richard arrived an hour later with Aunt Catherine. He took one look at me and his face twisted. "Of course you're here. Richard," my mother started. "No, Angela, I'm going to say this. David's entire life is falling apart, and your golden boy Marcus is probably thrilled." "That's enough," my father said. "Is it? 'Cause I've been thinking about this. David spent his whole life trying to be the successful one, the one who made the family proud. And then Marcus comes out of nowhere with his billions and his empire, and suddenly David's not enough anymore. Suddenly he has to compete." I stayed very still. "You think I caused this? I think you changed the equation. I think David felt pressure to keep up, to prove he was still successful. And maybe that pressure made him sloppy, made him miss things he should have caught." David stood up. "Stop it, Dad. This isn't Marcus's fault. You don't know that." "Yes, I do. Because I'm a grown man who made my own choices. If I missed red flags at my firm, that's on me. Not on Marcus for being successful. But the timing is coincidence. The senior partner who ran the scheme has been doing it for 8 years. Long before Marcus revealed anything about his business." Richard looked like he wanted to argue more, but Catherine put a hand on his arm. "Let it go." He glared at me one more time, then left the room. We stayed up all night. The lawyers went through everything. Every case David had worked on, every document he'd signed, every interaction with a partner under investigation. It became clear as the night progressed that David was likely not criminally liable. He'd been negligent maybe, hadn't asked enough questions. But he wasn't part of the fraud. The problem was civil liability and professional consequences. Even if he wasn't charged, his career at the firm was over. His reputation was damaged. His future was uncertain. Around 3 a.m., everyone else had fallen asleep or gone home. Just David and I were left awake, sitting at his kitchen table with cold coffee. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "For what?" "For everything. For how we treated you. For not seeing you. For being part of the problem. We've had this conversation. Not about that. About this." He gestured vaguely at the chaos around us. "About you having to drop everything and come here to help me. After everything. You're my brother. Am I? Have I ever actually been your brother? Or was I just the guy who made you feel small for 30 years? Thought about that. You were both." He laughed bitterly. "Honest as always. You want me to lie. No. I want you to tell me how you do it." "Do what?" "Succeed without losing yourself. Build something massive without becoming the kind of person who ruins lives. Because I look at my career and I realize I don't even know what I was chasing. Partnership. Money. Dad's approval. And in chasing it, I missed everything that actually mattered." I sipped my cold coffee. "You know what the difference is between you and me. You're smarter. No. You're probably smarter actually. The difference is that I never had anything to lose. You were the golden child. You had expectations, pressure, this image to maintain. I was invisible so I could take risks. I could fail quietly. I could build something without everyone watching and judging. That's not better. I'm not saying it's better. I'm saying it's different. Your burden was being seen too much. Mine was not being seen at all. Both suck in their own way." He nodded slowly. "So what do I do now? What do you want to do?" "I don't know. For the first time in my life, I genuinely don't know." "Then you figure it out. Without the pressure of being the golden child. Without trying to meet anyone's expectations. You just figure out what David actually wants." "That's terrifying." "Yeah, it is." 3 days later, after the immediate crisis had calmed and it became clear David wouldn't face criminal charges, I made him an offer. We were at a coffee shop near his house. He looked exhausted but more settled. "I want you to come work for me." He nearly spit out his coffee. "What?" "Connect Point needs a general counsel. Someone who understands complex corporate structures, compliance, litigation. You're qualified." "Marcus, I'm about to be fired from my firm for failing to catch a massive fraud scheme. I'm not qualified for anything. You're qualified because you learned a hard lesson. And because you're my brother and I trust you. You shouldn't trust me. After everything. I trust you more now than I did before. 'Cause now you've failed. Now you're human. Now you understand what it's like to not be the golden child. He stared at me. I can't take charity from you. It's not charity. It's a job offer. You'll make less than you did at the firm. You'll work your ass off. And I'll be a demanding boss. Why are you doing this? I thought about my grandmother's letter. About release and forgiveness and building something new. Because family is complicated. Because you stood up to Uncle Richard for me. Because you called me your brother when it mattered. And because I think you could be really good at this if you stop trying to prove yourself and just do the work. He was quiet for a long time. Can I think about it? Take all the time you need. He called me 2 weeks later. The firm officially terminated my partnership. They're cooperating fully with the investigation and throwing everyone who worked with the fraudulent partner under the bus. My professional reputation in the legal community here is destroyed. I'm sorry. Don't be. It's actually liberating. For the first time in 20 years, I don't have to perform being the perfect lawyer. So yes. If the offer's still open, I want the job. It's open. Seattle. Fresh start. New city. No history, no expectations. When do you want me to start? How soon can you move? My mother cried when she heard. You're saving him. You're saving your brother. I'm not saving anyone, Mom. I'm offering him a job. It's more than that. You're giving him a second chance when he doesn't deserve it. Everyone deserves a second chance. He hugged me. When did you get so wise? I'm not wise. I'm just tired of being angry. My father's reaction was different. You're hiring David. Yes. Marcus, you need to be careful. Mixing family and business. Dad, I own venues that host family events. I already mixed family and business. This is just more of the same. But if it doesn't work out, then it doesn't work out. I'll deal with it. He was quiet. Then, you're a better man than me. I'm just a different man than you. No, better. I would have held a grudge. Would have used this to prove I was right about everything. But you're helping him. Despite everything. He's my brother. He didn't act like it for 30 years. No, but I'm choosing to believe people can change. Including him. Including all of us. Richard called me 3 days before David was set to move to Seattle. I need to talk to you. Okay. In person. We met at a restaurant. Neutral ground. He looked older than I remembered. The stress of the last month had aged him. I was wrong, he said without preamble. Waited. About you. About David. About the wedding. All of it. I was wrong and I've been wrong for years. Okay. That's it. Just okay. What do you want me to say, Richard? That I forgive you. That it's all water under the bridge. I want you to understand why I acted the way I did. I already understand. You're insecure. You built your identity around being successful and having the perfect family. When I disrupted that narrative, you lashed out. It's not complicated. He flinched. You don't pull punches, do you? Not anymore. He nodded slowly. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I see it now. What I did. Who I was. And I'm trying to be better. Are you? Or are you just saying that because David's crisis made you realize you need me? Both probably. I'm not going to pretend I'm completely altruistic here. I almost smiled. At least you're honest. I learned it from watching you. You've always been honest. Painfully so. The rest of us were so busy performing that we forgot how to just be real. So what now? Now I'm asking if we can start over. Not forget everything. But maybe build something new. Thought about it. About my grandmother's letter. About the weight of resentment. I can't promise we'll ever be close, I said. Too much history. But I can promise I'll try to be civil. to show up to family events, to not hold on to anger. That's more than I deserve. Probably. But I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for me. Because I'm tired of family gatherings being tense. I'm tired of watching my mother navigate between us. I'm tired of the whole mess. So we're okay. We're functional. That's the best I can offer. He extended his hand. I shook it. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't friendship. But it was something. I gave David an office with a view. Not as good as mine, but still impressive. Floor-to-ceiling windows, modern furniture, everything he needed. He stood in the doorway, looking overwhelmed. This is too much. It's standard for senior executives. I'm not a senior executive yet. I'm a guy who just got fired from his firm. You're my general counsel. That makes you a senior executive. Now get in here and let's talk about what we need you to focus on. We spent the first day going over the company structure, our legal challenges, our growth plans. David asked smart questions. He pushed back on some of my assumptions. He was good at this. At the end of the day, he stood to leave, then paused. Thank you for this. For believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. Don't thank me yet. Wait until you see the workload. He laughed. Fair enough. David. Yeah. Welcome to the family business. He smiled. A real smile. Maybe the first genuine one I'd seen from him in years. It's good to be here. Meadowbrook Estate looked perfect. Amanda's baby shower was everything she'd wanted. Elegant, joyful, celebrating new life and new beginnings. The family was all there. Mom and Dad looking healthier and happier. Melissa with her kids who were getting big. David and his wife who'd moved to Seattle and seemed to be thriving. Even Richard and Catherine, who were almost pleasant these days. I was seated at a table up front, like Amanda had promised. Not the head table, but close enough to feel included. During the gift opening, Amanda pulled out an envelope with my name on it. This is from Uncle Marcus. The cool one. Everyone laughed. She opened it to find a check and a letter. She read the letter silently, then looked up at me with tears in her eyes. You're giving me a college fund for the baby? Someone gave me a chance when I needed it. Figured I'd pass it forward. Marcus, this is. She couldn't finish. My mother was crying. Melissa was crying. Even my father looked misty. Amanda came over and hugged me. Thank you. For this. For everything. For always being exactly who you are. Near the end of the shower, my father stood up. This surprised everyone. Dad didn't do speeches anymore. Not since the heart attack had softened him. I want to say something, he announced. The room went quiet. 38 years ago, my son Marcus was born. And I'm ashamed to say that from that day forward, I failed him. Not in providing for him, I did that. But in seeing him. In valuing him. In treating him like he mattered. My mother reached for his hand. For most of Marcus's life, I measured him against standards he never agreed to. I compared him to his siblings. I dismissed his accomplishments. I made him feel invisible in his own family. People were uncomfortable now. This wasn't typical shower conversation. And when Marcus finally showed us who he really was, not who we decided he should be, but who he'd actually become, I responded with suspicion instead of pride. With resentment instead of celebration. He looked at me. Son, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know I can't give you back the 30 years where I made you feel less than. But I want you to know, in front of everyone here, that you are the person I'm most proud of in this family. Richard shifted uncomfortably, but didn't protest. Not because of your money. Not because of your company. But because you took everything we threw at you. All the dismissal, all the condescension, all the ways we failed you. And you didn't become bitter. You became better. Dad, I started. You helped your brother when you had every reason to turn your back on him. You gave your uncle a second chance when he'd spent years belittling you. You showed up for your mother when she needed you, even when she'd spent decades not showing up for you. He was crying now. My father, who I'd never seen cry. You taught us what family actually means. Not performance. Not expectations. Not living up to some imaginary standard. Just showing up. Just being there. Just trying. He raised his glass. To Marcus. The son who exceeded every expectation I never knew I should have had. The brother who chose forgiveness over revenge. The man who built an empire but never lost himself. Everyone stood. Everyone raised their glasses. To Marcus, they echoed. I couldn't speak. Couldn't move. This was what I'd wanted my entire life. Recognition. Acknowledgement. Pride. And now that I had it, I realized something strange. Felt good, but it wasn't everything. Because I'd already built a life that mattered. I'd already proven my worth to the person who mattered most, myself. This was just the epilogue. After everyone left, I walked the grounds of Meadowbrook Estate. My property. My investment. My empire. But also just a beautiful place where families celebrated and lives changed and moments happened. I thought about the wedding 3 years ago. About standing in the same spot, invisible and angry and determined to prove something. Proven it. And it had felt hollow. But then I'd done something harder. I'd let go of needing to prove it. I'd built relationships instead of victories. I'd chosen connection over being right. My phone buzzed. Text from David. That speech from Dad. You okay? I smiled and typed back. Yeah, I'm good. And I was. Not because my family had finally validated me, but because I'd validated myself. And everything that came after, the reconciliation, the relationships, the healing, was just bonus. The real victory was never about the wedding reveal. It was about the quiet Tuesday morning 2 years later when I woke up in Seattle, looked at my life, and realized I was genuinely happy. Not happy in spite of my family. Not happy to prove them wrong. Just happy. Christmas at my house in Seattle. The whole family came. It had become tradition. Seattle Christmas with Marcus. David was now so of Connect Point. Turned out he was brilliant at operations. Who knew? Melissa had gone back to school and become a therapist. She said our family had given her plenty of material to work with. Mom and Dad had retired and were traveling. Actually enjoying each other without the pressure of maintaining appearances. Richard and I were civil. Sometimes even friendly. He'd actually apologized, really apologized, the previous year at Thanksgiving. Amanda's kid was 3 now. She'd named me godfather. I took the job seriously. We were sitting around after dinner, full and content, when my father asked me something he'd never asked before. Marcus, tell us about the business. Really tell us. What are you working on? What excites you? Everyone leaned in. Actually interested. Actually listening. So I told them. About the expansion into Europe. About the AI integration we were developing. About the challenges and victories and fascinating problems we were solving. They asked questions. Good questions. Engaged questions. And halfway through, I realized something. This was enough. Not perfect. We'd never be perfect. There were still old wounds, still complicated dynamics, still moments of tension. But it was real. And it was enough. Later, standing on my deck looking at the Seattle skyline, Melissa joined me. You did it, she said. Did what? Won. You won the whole thing. The success, the respect, the family healing. You won. Thought about that. I didn't win, I said finally. I just stopped playing a game I never agreed to in the first place. Is there a difference? Yeah, there is. Winning implies someone else lost. But nobody lost here. We all just finally started being honest. She nodded. You're so wise now. It's annoying. I laughed. I'm not wise. I'm just tired of being angry. Same thing, maybe. We stood there in comfortable silence, watching the city lights. Behind us, through the windows, I could see my family. Laughing, arguing, being complicated and human and imperfect. My family. Not the one I'd been born into. The one we'd all chosen to build. And that made all the difference. Revenge is easy. Forgiveness is hard. But the hardest thing, and the most worthwhile, is building something new from the rubble of what broke. You don't owe toxic family your presence. But if they're willing to change, if they're willing to try, maybe you owe yourself the chance to see if healing is possible. Not for them. For you. Because carrying resentment is like drinking poison and expecting someone else to die. And life is too short to be anything other than free.